A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. So my name is Muhammad Daniel Irfan bin Muzadul Hasdi. So today we are from group 8 are going to present about our assignment, which is halal risk and reputation management. Okay, so before we begin our presentation, let's take a look with about the video tazkirah that we have prepared for you.
Kita ustaz dengan serban, dengan baju nak belak kain tapal bau. Nak naik tu sikat tengok orang ni. La ilaha illallah, ustaz apa bodoh itu. Yang terbaik Rasulullah jumpa orang senyum. Bapa adik ulama paling besar Rasulullah. Allah pada para malaikat lagi. Tak sah awang kita apa pun Nabi bih lagi. Buat mari ulama seluruh dunia menang Rasulullah. Rasulullah jumpa orang senyum, hormat ke orang, dengan orang jahil layang, dengan budak-budak main. Kita baru start kampung, baru ngajar musalli buat sombong. Nah, macam mana orang nak dekat dengan kita? Macam mana orang tertarik nak balik ke jalan Islam? Nah, muka catu nak mau macam rimah nak telok. Nah, biar manis muka. Walaupun kita benci tengok orang jahil tapi nak tarik orang. Dia kita imam, mana imam ni orang depan kali. Nah, takkan ada orang depan macam dia tak sah mayang. Dia depan kali, dia high level kali, tinggi kali. Bila dia tinggi sekali, gunakanlah ketinggian taraf dia tu untuk tarik orang. Mana? Jumpa orang senyum, baru imam. Jumpa orang tegur, Waalaikumsalam. Bermakna janganlah kita duduk berasa orang lain tu tak molek daripada kita. Kita tahu dosa kita, kita kena berasa kita lebih tak molek. Masalah kita yang menipu tutup lebar jenis orang mengaji ni, dia berasa molek pada orang lain. Itu penyakit. Siapa sini tak ada dosa belaka? Seluruh dunia ni jenis buat dosa belaka. Tok Imam cara Tok Imam dosa. Tok Bilal cara Tok Bilal, Tok Guru ada dosa tak dengan Allah. Yang tak ada dosa yang maksum Rasulullah.
Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah wallahu akbar.
As a general introduction, halal reputation is a collective representation of a company's past actions and halal performance, as well as its future ability to meet halal requirements. Most companies' current risk management practices are passive and have a significant gaps, resulting in a flawed halal assurance system and halal risk management. A halal assurance system and traditional risk management practices are insufficient for effective risk management control of a halal incident. Halal reputation management also is not the same as traditional corporate reputation management. Companies must measure their corporate halal reputation in order for them to protect their corporate reputation and also sales in the Muslim markets. Companies must also earn the right to operate. Instead of a reactive system based on current compliance with the requirements of a specific halal certification body, a more proactive integrated approach to halal reputation management is also compulsory to be implemented.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Muhammad Afif Jazimin bin Maharan, and I would like to continue with the presentation of literature review of risk management. So, according to 1921, risk is something that can be measured, whereas uncertainty cannot be measured, and the probability of the various outcomes are unknowns. So, risk management is typically defined as the identifications and study of hazards and their potential effects control. Second, the 6 types of halal integrated related risk identified by Ali 2014 are production risk, raw material risk, food security risk, outsourcing practices risk, service risk, and logistic risk. That one is risk management's first approach emphasizes proactive preparations by identifying and evaluating risk first, then enhancing supply chain management by implementing suitable methods, include supply chain integration, multi-level procurement, and management of inventories. After a specific danger has occurred, the second type of risk management deals with occurrence. Ex-post supply chain risk management addresses how to act after an incident has occurred by trying to develop and select the risk mitigation approach.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Ajwad Hakimi bin Habidi, and right now I'm continue with analysis and discussion part, and I will explain about halal risk. So as you can see in the slide, there are a few points that I will explain and discuss with all of you. And for the first thing is in halal risk, especially in a production process, the risk to halal management is very important. Even though it is a complicated work, and every work must done in a careful manner, so that every work done can avoid the risk that can have various implications to produce a product. So plus the need to have proper risk management research is also very important and necessary in ensuring food safety, health issue, and also halal status of a product. So when discussing halal risk in management, the aim to ensure that all stage and supply chains are done carefully and will not cause any problem to the production process. So next, there are three main point of type of risk management. So for the first thing is processing risk. So when we discuss about processing risk, it is important we have to know about the rating of processed raw material to other foods, and also risk assessment is considered to assess the safety of eating and the determination of the quality of halal product. And lastly, about the processing risk is pollution and the risk of damage in processing will violate halal integrity. So next is about the logistic risk. Logistic risk is a possible main source of risk of pollution in business operation if it is not properly taken care of. So next is the function of logistic is to facilitate the process of eliminating halal product instead of encountering non-halal product. So lastly, the third point of type of risk management is about the raw material risk. When we talk about raw material risk, the supply of raw material must be from halal sources, and the halal status of raw material is one of the main factor in in ensuring integrity in halal food. And also, risk management of halal integrity is important in ensuring customers trust in halal certificate product brand. So for the type of risk management and also the explanation about halal risk, I think that's all from me. Next we move to the next part.
Welcome to Halal Business Management. My name is Dr. Marco Tiemann. I'm a professor in Halal Supply Chain Management with Help University and the author of Halal Business Management, a guide to achieving halal excellence. In this video, I'm answering the question, what is halal risk management? Halal risk management is an emerging requirement for industries serving Muslim markets. This is important as halal requires a supply chain approach. Halal risk management is therefore an important halal business skill to have for entrepreneurs and companies in the halal industry. I will be covering a few important topics in halal risk management. First of all, I will be looking at current halal risk management practices. Then I will be covering the most common gaps I find in halal supply chains. And thirdly, how best to organize halal risk control for brand owners. When we talk about halal risk management practices, I predominantly see a very passive approach regarding halal risks. Halal is considered by most companies as a compliance issue to make sure we are compliant with the regulations, with the current regulations of the halal certification body and its standards. And the actual risk throughout the entire supply chain are not really on their radar screen. This means that we have not defined correct halal control points and control measures for brand owners. What is the most common assumption that companies have in risk management? They assume that the halal assurance system developed where you need to be halal certified in combination with the existing protocols from corporate communication are good enough to tackle any halal issue or a crisis. What I find, however, that most crisis manuals are not very well suited to address halal issues and halal crises. So this endangers also the halal integrity of products, but also the corporate reputation potentially of brand owners. Halal issues of halal supply chains. There is fortunately an increasing awareness by both governments and also industries that it is important. So it is important. Why? The halal industry is getting much larger. Initially it was meat, then it became food, then it also went to other industries such as cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, various industrial products, but also into services. So the halal industry is getting larger, therefore there are more halal integrity issues potentially. We also have seen that supply chains can be very complex, so they are quite difficult to detect halal issues. Thirdly, once they are detected and once they are out, they can go very fast as a viral message throughout the internet, endangering the corporate reputation of a company. What are the common gaps I found in halal supply chains? First of all, is that when a company, a factory needs to be halal certified, people need to be trained. So what I often see is that in a factory, actual factory people are very well trained on halal when they first enter the company, and also often every year they receive a training. This can be very different when we talk about logistics service providers, distributors, or retailers that have not received training on halal. So we see a different level of awareness in the supply chain, and also a different level of halal knowledge and capabilities. Second, the halal status is not well communicated through the supply chain on freight documents, freight labels, and also in IT system. What I also have shared in other videos is your segregation is as good as your communication. So if you don't communicate the halal status, halal will be mixed in supply chains with this, which is an issue. The halal status of cargo is often not a consolidation requirement to transport. This is an issue because we not always have full container loads of goods. It is mixed, and in particular when it goes towards the end of a supply chain, downstream a supply chain, that we see that there's a high degree of consolidation in transportation, where potentially halal is mixed with non-halal, which is an issue. The same is true also with e-commerce shipments, where halal and non-halal is potentially also combined. I also see that halal status of cargo is not a storage requirement in warehousing. And technically, if you want to be halal certified as a brand owner, you need to segregate halal from non-halal in both transportation and storage. So it's important that compliance is also applied in supply chains, although halal authorities might not always be enforcing this. Another gap we find out is that we see halal SOPs, halal training in the factory itself. But when we talk to head office, when we talk to other functions in purchasing, marketing, sales, logistics, we find out there often those people are not trained. The problem is, if those people in those important functions are not trained, they are still parties that deal with supply chain partners. So purchasing is dealing with the suppliers, and sales is dealing with the distributors and retailers. So if those important disciplines are not properly educated on halal, this is also not translated in SOPs in other functions, and also not translated into halal practices in other parts of the supply chain. We see that a lot of contracts between brand owners and third parties, can be suppliers, but also logistics service providers, distributors, have covered very well food safety, product safety, basic hygiene practices, but not halal very well. I'm of the perspective that there should be a proper halal clause in contracts with supply chain partners. The service industry is not very well prepared for halal issues and crises. This is very different from big brand owners, manufacturers that have an established practice of protocols, crisis manuals, issue management manuals, corporate communication with their tools. This is less the case in the service industries when we talk about logistics providers, distributors, and also even retailers. And this can be a problem when there is a halal issue or crisis. Finally, there is an important gap. That is a lack of collaboration in supply chains. We call that vertical collaboration, collaboration with your suppliers, customers, customers of your customers, and suppliers of your suppliers. And also collaboration with other industries, or maybe even competitors in facilitating transportation and storage, hereby missing a lot of synergy advantages that allows cost saving, but also allows a better protection of the halal integrity throughout the supply chain. So the consequences of these gaps in the halal supply chain, that there could be serious gaps which will have impact on the effectiveness of the halal assurance system, and also effectiveness of the risk and crisis management. So what we see that a lot of companies and supply chain partners might not be as good as prepared for halal incidents and as they think. So big brands can be exposed to high impact integrity violation throughout their supply chain, but also damaging potential sales and also your corporate reputation. So how to organize halal risk control? So a lot of companies assume that the halal assurance system is that control mechanism for halal risks, but that's not true, and that's not true. You need more building blocks to organize halal risk management. So you need to have also looking at risk prevention. So you need to establish, for example, a halal supply chain management blueprint. So how to protect the robustness of your halal supply chain. Secondly, you have to put a proper mitigation plans in place to have an effective response in case there is a halal issue, that you straight away know what to do, who to communicate with. Because a lot of crises that happened in terms of halal with big brand owners showed that a quick response is essential to limit your damages. If there is a halal crisis, it's essential also to restore your corporate reputation and social capital of a brand. You need to establish proper roadmaps, proper guidelines and communication guidelines, how to repair the halal trust, Islamic values, and also the network. In my research on halal risk management, I established a halal supply chain risk profile. This is based on extensive academic research in various industries. So what I found that when you're dealing with food companies, that you require a more extensive risk management, halal risk management, as compared to non-food products, cosmetics, pharmaceuticals. One of the reasons is that the halal food industry is very mature and that there are very high standards also on halal. Whereas in non-food related areas such as cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, industrial products, halal is not as mature, and maybe also the expectations of the Muslim consumers are also less. They're already happy when they see a halal certificate on the product. Also, products that are animal-based require more extensive halal risk management as compared to products that are non-animal based. In Islam, there are very strict requirements on what animals and also components of the animals can be used for consumption of humans. Therefore, this is by definition a red flag in halal certification. If a product has animal components, and there are very strict requirements to allow this to happen. Therefore, if there are any animal-based products, it can be even small additives or ingredients, you need to have a far more extensive halal risk management in place. If you're dealing with suppliers from non-Muslim countries, you also require more extensive halal risk management as compared to suppliers from Muslim majority countries. And the reason is that in non-Muslim countries, halal is often not well controlled. There's no accreditation also of halal certification bodies by the government. The halal and the halal logo is often not well protected also in those countries. Therefore, you need to build far more extensive halal risk management. When we talk about serving Muslim majority countries, in the video, what is halal supply chain management, we have learned there's a difference between organizing halal supply chains for Muslim majority versus non-Muslim countries. So if you are dealing with serving Muslim majority countries, the requirements of the halal supply chain are far higher. Therefore, also the logistics service providers and distributors involved in serving those Muslim majority countries require far more extensive halal risk management. Finally, you can learn more about halal branding in the previous video. What is halal branding? So brands from non-Muslim countries also require far more extensive risk management as compared to brands from Muslim majority countries. The reason of this is that the practices of companies in Muslim countries are far more mature. Companies from non-Muslim countries are also far more doubted by the Muslim consumer. So you need to establish a far more extensive halal risk management as compared to brands from Muslim majority countries. So what is the takeaway of this session on halal risk management? For an effective halal risk management control, the halal assurance system is not good enough. They need to build far more extensive components in prevention, mitigation, and also in case of an halal crisis.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. My name is Fadilah bin Osman, and I will explain about the driver of company's halal reputation. A company's halal reputation is strengthened by several factors: the validity of halal food, the reliability of halal certification, the company's and its supply chain partner, communication, and those from outside stakeholders rank among the most influential factors. These factors interact with one another and affect how well a company performs in terms of halal reputation. The first point is halal authenticity. Companies must create a true halal DNA in order to interact with the Muslim community. A company's reputation affects how authentically halal it is. Second point is message by company and supply chain partner. Independent of their products or services, businesses build their own positive or poor reputation based mostly on what they say about their own halal reputation. And lastly, my last point is trustworthiness of halal certification. Not all halal nation certifications are regarded as being completely reliable. Additionally, the amount of preference for a product is frequently explained by how credible people regard a halal certification to be. And we see the next video.
In this video, I'm answering the question, what is halal reputation management? Over the past 7 years, I've conducted extensive research in the area of halal risk and halal reputation management. My interest was in particular triggered by big brands getting into trouble because of halal incidents in Muslim majority country. And if the incident was true or not, perception becomes reality with big consequences for sales as well as corporate reputation. In this video, I will be discussing further on the topic of halal reputation. What is a halal reputation? Also, we'll be talking about a halal crisis. What do companies experience during that halal crisis, and how to best to measure corporate reputation. Corporate reputation actually has a lot of value for large and mid-cap stocks traded at the London Stock Exchange. This can be easily 38.8% on average of the entire market capitalization of the company. For some companies, like Shell, this is even higher, beyond 50%. What is halal reputation? In my book, I defined corporate halal reputation as the collective representation of the firm's past actions and halal performance, as well as the firm's future ability to meet halal requirements. In this definition, you see a perspective to the past, looking at the past actions of the company and its performance. But you also see what the future perspective, how good is the company able to meet future halal requirements in order to protect the halal integrity for the consumer. So two perspectives, the past, but also the future. Halal reputation is very easy. You can earn it by doing and telling the right thing. easy as you think. But the problem is that the way companies are organized, working in different countries, supply chain crossing borders, brands, how they are organized, it becomes very complex to manage, and companies are very vulnerable. So it's therefore important to protect your corporate halal reputation. A good halal reputation has big benefits. First of all, it increases your sales in Muslim markets. Secondly, also it creates a buffer in case of a halal incident. Although a buffer, it doesn't mean that you're fully insulated from any halal incidents or halal crisis. In particular, where you are not transparent in the halal crisis and where you do not have a strong halal authenticity or DNA. A halal crisis, well, this can happen certainly to companies active in Muslim markets. It could happen even every 10 years. So that is something you could assume that those things can happen when you're doing business in Muslim markets. You could lose a lot of sales. We have seen from case studies I've looked at that you can easily lose 30 or 10 to 50 million for multinational companies, in a range for large company 5 to 10 million, and up to 5 million for SMEs. So there's a lot of money. In terms of reputation losses, this can be triple easily your sales lost. What do companies experience when they go through a halal crisis? So a whirlpool becomes a maelstrom with a vortex dragging companies deep under. A corporate communication will be helping and throwing a life buoy to you. But the problem is that those life buoys are not really life buoys, because the actions of corporate communications are based on crisis manuals where halal is not very well covered. Also, the halal assurance system developed by the company might not be sufficient to address halal issues and halal crisis. So companies get into trouble. So what are important lessons learned by companies that experience a halal crisis? 3 important lessons I would like to share with you. First of all, time is of the essence. So when there is a halal issue, to contain the issue and to avoid it snowballing further into a big crisis, it is important that you make the right decisions early on. So time is of the essence, and you can only do that when you have prepared in advance. So you need to have a halal crisis manual, a halal issue mitigation manual to address a halal issue and a halal crisis. Or you have an existing crisis manual, but an extensive section on halal crisis. So you need to be prepared. You can only react fast when you have everything prepared in advance. Under stress, otherwise you make the wrong decisions. The second lesson is that you also should see a halal crisis as an opportunity to generate, to increase halal authenticity, as well as halal trust of the company. This at the end could strengthen halal brand sales and company market share. So during the masterclass, we will be covering various case studies where brands have addressed a halal issue and a crisis very differently and came out very differently. Thirdly, an important lesson is that the only way to create a strong halal reputation is when you also measure it. So you need to establish halal reputation key performance indicators. This for both at the halal committee as well as top management. So how can you measure corporate halal reputation? A lot of companies, they have a survey they do to measure the perception of the Muslim consumer towards their brand. perception is a very limited perspective, because perception can change very easily. It is like driving on the highway in a fast car and just looking at your side mirrors and going forward. That is going okay until the first bend in the road, or until there is a traffic jam, and then you crash your car. So you need a more rational evaluation for a company and brands. You need an objective tool to measure corporate reputation, and the perception of the Muslim consumer is not good enough for this. In my research, I created a Halal reputation index to measure the corporate reputation of companies. In this index, I have 4 important drivers to measure corporate Halal reputation. First of all, Halal authenticity. And Halal authenticity is the DNA of the company, which is based on the Halal strategy of the company, strategic alignment, and also at the stage of the company and the evolution of Halal. At what stage is the company? Secondly, an important driver is the trustworthiness of the Halal certification body. You have different Halal certification bodies in the world. Some are from Muslim companies. These are private companies. You also have government that is also doing Halal certification, NGOs, and also mosques. So these are different types of organizations. Some of them are accredited also by the government, others are not. So there's a whole mix of Halal certification bodies. If you are working with a more credible Halal certification body, it has positive effects for your corporate Halal reputation. The third driver is the messages by company and supply chain partners. It's about communication. Communication can be used to protect your reputation assets during a crisis. So if you have positive communication about your corporate reputation, it leads to a positive effect on your corporate reputation. If you have negative messaging, it leads to a negative corporate reputation. So the response of a company is crafted by the Halal reputation strategy, and it's operationalized by both Halal issue management and Halal crisis management. The fourth driver of corporate Halal reputation is the messages by the external stakeholders. So negative publicity about Halal incidents have become a great threat to both the corporate reputation and sales. So what is your connectivity as a company to Muslim communities? What does the media say about this Halal incident? And what is your previous track records on Halal issues and incidents? What you see in corporate Halal reputation is that Halal authenticity is the most important driver for corporate reputation. What you also see is that in corporate Halal reputation, that 3 out of the 4 drivers, number 1, 2, and 3, these are internal measurements. So for a big part, you are in control over your own corporate Halal reputation. So 3 of the 4 drivers are internal drivers. So you can do a lot about your corporate Halal reputation yourself. A second measurement of corporate Halal reputation is the license to operate rating. In this measurement, you relate the 4 drivers of corporate Halal reputation to the Halal market requirements of a country. So in my earlier videos, I've explained that the Halal requirements for Muslim countries are different among different countries. So the Halal requirements of Malaysia are different from Indonesia, Brunei, and Saudi Arabia. So there should be an alignment between those drivers and the actual Halal market requirements per market. So your license to operate can differ between Malaysia and Indonesia and Saudi Arabia. Secondly, with new fatwas, new Halal standards, your license to operate can also change. Therefore, it is very important to measure the license to operate rating for the key markets you're working in. So what is the takeaway of this session on halal reputation management? It's good to realize that halal reputation management is very different from conventional corporate reputation management, and it needs measurements in order to excel in your halal reputation.
Okay, as a conclusion, halal risk management system measures are in place to deal with any contamination or doubt about halal products that is produced in the certain company. The main key to effective and efficient crisis management and limiting reputational damage is to recovery. The primary goals of recovery are to restore the brand's reputation or social capital, specifically its trust, Islamic values, and also network, so that the brand can regain consumer trust and thrive in the halal market. Halal ecosystems can also be advanced halal clusters, parks, or zones where halal industries are collaborate within their own supply chain to achieve halal synergies. Because of halal ecosystems are better organized, the company supply chains are more robust by design. Companies that are halal certified or are in the process of becoming halal certified should also be educated on halal risk and reputation management. It is also important to recognize that halal certified business are also vulnerable to the halal incidents and crises that are available. This also should be covered in training courses for other halal standards. So I think that's all from our groups. Thank you and have a nice day.